And it runs out.
Okay, yes, sir. And we're about to be live, so let's go. Spin that back show. Intro.
Turn up the dial, it's 10:30. Be back. Spin that back show, all the classics on track. From 79 to 99, we're crossing the gap. Album reviews, little known facts, hip hop intact. Saturday mornings, dive into the history. Samples and stories, old school mysteries. Remember South Static, Shiraz, and CDD. Blow up at a beam. Turn it up, let the vinyl spin. 10:30 sharp, where the stories begin. From the golden era, treasures within. Spin that back show every Saturday when we break it down, the legends and the lore. Every beat, every rhyme, uncover more. From Grandmaster Flash to Nas's Raw, we're bridging the past, hip-hop's core.
Bring it back, bring it back. Spin that back show one more time. 10:30 Saturday morning. Glad that you're all here with us. We'd like to tell you to hit that like, subscribe, and hit the comments too. Anyway, what's going on, Mr. Nice Guy?
What's happening? May 10, 2025. It's hot, burning up here in this shed. So, that's what's going on.
It's hot
We're
out
eager
here.
to talk about this hip hop. That's what's up.
Yeah. We talk about hip hop from 79 to 99, the inception of recorded hip hop music. Even though I got some info the other day that it was an actual rap record that came out in 78. We're going to do some history on that one day. Anyway, so we talk about 79 to 99, the golden era that we like to call the golden era of hip hop. So anyway, we're going to get into this today. Today, we're going to have a short show. It's hot out here in LA. It's going to be like in the 90s. And we ain't having it. It's hot already. So anyway, we're going to talk about, check this out. We're going to talk about the evolution of the come up of the South hip hop. We're going to start with Big, Pac, the East Coast, West Coast feud, and how that kind of built up for the South to actually come up. Now, this is just our opinion on things. So don't take it personal. If you have any comments or anything, we welcome them. But we want to talk about it like this. Let's say this first. Let me say this. Big and Pac. As everybody know the story. Big and Pac was cool. Big had dropped that party and bullshit. Pac heard it. They met up. They linked up. They liked each other's vibe. And they was cool. They even did a few records together. At least 2 that was released. And then everything exploded, and you know what happened. But let's talk about this, because we never really did an individual show on Big or Pac. So let's kind of do like a little synopsis.
We did do Big.
We did do Big, okay.
Yeah, but we didn't do Pac. We did Pac maybe as part of Digital Underground, but yeah.
We surely did. Well, Pac came first. Pac was part of Digital Underground and everything. Pac was more like a conscious rapper, but you got to understand, Pac came from the East Coast. What was his name when he came out here?
His name was MC New York.
MC
talking all that West Coast stuff.
I mean, come on now. Let's spin that back. His name was MC New York when he came out here to Oakland. He started doing this thing with Digital Underground. I guess he started going by his name eventually. But he's from the East Coast. And he came out here to the West Coast, got involved with stuff. Even Too Short was like, man, I couldn't even get involved with this dude because he knew he was like, he had the Panther background and everything, but then he was carrying guns and hanging out with tough guys and all those type of stuff and trying to get involved with the culture. And Too Short was like, nah, I gotta separate myself from this dude right here. He kind of dangerous. So this might have been his demise. But the crazy thing is, I want to make this point. Both those brothers was from the East Coast, Big and Pac. They both got killed out here on the West Coast. Ain't that crazy?
Yeah.
So anyway.
I said we're gonna say some things about Pac, but he's been around some hoods. I mean, just think about it. He came from New York, was in Baltimore, ended up in Oakland, and then Los Angeles, South Central. He's seen some hoods. So we're not just saying he's just a complete civilian. I mean, he's a civilian. I mean, the bottom line is he shouldn't have gotten involved in this stuff. You know, make your money, be rich, do the conscious thing, just stay away from the circles that he got caught up in and sucked up in. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Not only was he a civilian, he was a superstar. You know, you didn't have to get yourself involved in that type of stuff. The Big thing was a whole lot different. I think that was a big old setup, in my opinion, because Big wasn't out here trying to act a fool. He was just in the place that he shouldn't have been. But it's just ironic that they both got killed out here on the West Coast. And that started, well, it didn't even start a feud. The feud started between them with a big old misunderstanding. Let's go through the story again. Pac had gotten shot or robbed and shot out here in New York at a studio at Big and then
Quad Studios.
At Quad Studios. And for some reason in Pac's head, he blamed them because Big was actually trying to tell him to watch out for the people you hanging around. And Pac just didn't listen, obviously. So then when he got shot, I guess he had asked Big or sent a message to him and said, you know who did this? And I don't know what happened from there, actually, because the story gets kind of convoluted from there. But
I don't know. To me, it seems pretty clear. I mean, the bottom line is, you know, look, you grow up around people, you see people, there's all type of people. You may see me interact with someone, you may see me be friendly with them, but I won't necessarily co-sign you interacting with those people. So the fact that Biggie might have been sort of like an interim, you know, as far as his exposure to those cats, the same cats that he got tied up with respect to that whole, you know, rape trial situation. But, you know, it was on record that Biggie's like, look, I'm not co-signing these cats. I'm not telling you need to watch your back around these cats because, you know, just because someone's friend with them don't mean they're friend with you. And, you know, it played out how it played out. You know, connections to them ended up robbing them. That whole situation, that all was a byproduct of that. And he put that on Biggie. He put that animosity on Biggie. And, you know, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, you know, that animosity, that motive is what ultimately got Biggie set up out here. So, you know,
yeah, that's true.
That's the reality. That
is true. But see, Pac was hard-headed because Big was trying to warn him. And I'm pretty sure somebody probably got in his ear when he was out here messing with these blood dudes out here, you know, with Suge and all them. Somebody probably was like, man, I don't know if they didn't, they should have been like, man, you might want to, you know, stay away from that. Because this whole West Coast thing is a whole lot different than down south and the East Coast and the Midwest. It's a whole different culture out here. This blood and Crip thing is some serious stuff, and they take this stuff very, very serious. And Pac wasn't about that. He didn't know anything about it. You only spend a few months out here. Well, you spend a little time, you know, with Stretch and all them in Inglewood and some of the 40s with Rated R and all that old stuff. But you wasn't a part of what they grew up in, the culture. You know what I'm saying? So you was hanging with a lot of Crips at first, at one point. Then you got with Suge and you hanging with Bloods. That's a big old no-no out here. And he probably didn't even recognize all this. You know, so it's a whole lot deeper, but I'm just saying. But anyway, so with Big and Pac or Death Row and Bad Boy going at it, it started this so-called East Coast, West Coast feud. And at this time, the West Coast, when Pac came to Death Row was the biggest thing in the world because Pac Snoop had already blew him up, but Pac just took him to the stratosphere, just really blew it up. And they were going at it with Bad Boy, and Bad Boy had Biggie, and Biggie was the big thing in New York. In fact, they was calling him the king of New York back then, which I don't really agree with.
Frank White.
Yeah, right. And they still saying he's one of the greatest rappers of all time. Now, he's a great rapper, don't get it wrong, but his catalog doesn't say he's one of the greatest of all time. He just didn't have enough material for me. That's just my opinion again. So, I mean, in fact, I'm even go off on a limb and say this. I hate to say it like this because a lot of people might give me some flack for this. Lil Wayne has a better catalog than Big. Because he has a more extensive catalog, only because. Now,
he probably sold more. I wouldn't listen to Lil Wayne music over Big's catalog, but you know, I think that's a legitimate argument to be made. Now, with all respect to Lil Wayne, who's kind of outside of our period, I mean, that dude, really put in some work. I mean, he really was the top guy for a nice little stretch. So his discography is a very respectable discography.
Yeah. When it came to the 2000s, he kind of ran that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But he did start in the 90s, though, because Cash Money, which we're going to get to, I guess one of the big things. So anyway, when the big old feud happened out here, and then Tupac got killed out there in Vegas, it was a sad time. Death Row fell apart, and then people started leaving. Actually, Dre had left before Tupac even got killed. He saw the writing on the wall. Death Row was falling apart. Suge went to jail. Snoop left. And guess where Snoop went to?
No Limit.
Down. Yeah. So, and then it was seeming like the West Coast was kind of falling off because, like I said, Death Row was the biggest thing out here. Then you had like people like Cube still making music. But from there, tell me some big artists that was still in the game, that was in the game a few years from the West Coast at that point, that still was holding on.
Well, see, you got to understand, there's the mainstream, the popular stuff, and then there's the underground. I was always with the underground. So to me, I love the whole liquidation movement. That's what I was about, the Alcoholics, King T, that type of stuff. And then as far as Ice Cube, I mean, Ice Cube, when those two albums dropped, those first two albums, he was the baddest dude in the world. You know what I'm saying? So, you always got to respect that. I felt like once you start getting down to that 97, 98 time, that wasn't really a good Cube music time for me personally. But, that's what's up. So I'm just saying that when I think about the West Coast, I think about the underground people that were really kind of putting that work. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if Razkaz was after that, but I mean, just a lot of these guys that were sort of like underground legends, especially when you get to the Good Life and, shout out to Born Allah, you know what I'm saying? So, Project Blowed, 2000 Crows, these were the big guys that were doing the underground great music, on the West Coast.
Yeah. You had Razkaz, Exhibit, the Souls, it was still doing things. Yeah, you had the underground movement. Underground has always been there, but I'm talking about people that was kind of like rising up. But it's right. All good, though. But then even on the East Coast, now after Big died, Puffy had kind of came up on his own, him and Mace, but they had changed the whole style of music. It went pop, and it was just sampling like loops, like take loops from the 80s and all that. And it was just like really, just gimmick rap at that point for them. So. And then you had your Jay-Z's, and then you had your DMX's. The Wu was still doing their thing, of course.
Yeah.
Enough respect to
Wu, but you know what? The Wu was like they had one foot in the underground and one foot in the mainstream. Their music was pretty much always underground gutter, and somehow that got welcomed into the mainstream, and I was happy for it. So them and Cypress.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir. Cypress was always doing their thing, too. But then around 97, this is when Big got killed. Late 97, 98, around that time, here comes No Limit. And they just started dropping. And Master P was dropping. And then you go, walk down the street, you see a bus bench. You got like 30 albums coming out next week. All No Limit. You know what I'm saying? He was selling all kinds of albums. And then when you found out about this dude actually having the deal that he had, I think he had like a 80-20 split or 85-15 split, something like that, in his favor. The man was making money. He took advantage. And then
shout out Brother Youssef. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. What's up, Brother Youssef? And then Cash Money came. And they was doing their little thing. They came with that Juvenile How and back that thing up.
Man, I'm telling you, back that thing up. If you weren't there to know, it literally took over music. Like the music that the guys listen to didn't necessarily line up with the music that the ladies listen to, at least on the West Coast. I know that there was a little more boogieing going on the East Coast, but back that thing up, got women out their character. It was like Halloween. Halloween bring out the slutty outfits. Back that thing up, brought out the slutty dancing. And I'm just saying, you can have the simplest person just be out their character to that song. So, in the club, that's a song that you want. That's a song that's gonna get everybody going. That's going, it's just, I'm just saying, this song took over. It was never a super great thing to me, but I respected the power of sticking that needle onto that vinyl and seeing everybody go crazy. So, salute to Juvenile and Cash Money for that.
Yes, sir. In fact, let's spin that back because I had forgot one thing. But before they came up, we had a dude named Timberland making tracks for Aaliyah and Genuine. He was doing a lot of R&B, but he was doing hip hop too. Like he had an album, Timberland and the group. And then Missy, of course, he was doing some Missy stuff and all that other stuff. And this sound really changed music altogether, actually. That offbeat timing and everything.
Yeah, that whole bouncy thing. I mean, he literally, it's just like that. It revolutionized, and people didn't look back. They didn't go back to the old style after that. Everything was sort of like a machination of what he was doing. So, and again, since R&B was already taking a lot of hip hop, this was a situation where, it was bleeding over and impacting hip hop because, hip hop was going to that southern bouncy swing and stuff like that. I mean, that's what people got you going in the club. And usually what gets you going in the club is going to get you them rotational spins.
Exactly. And then one more thing we had to mention too. Who was planting the seed out there in the South was Outkast. Because what was that? The 95 Source Awards. Same place where Suge had started all that mess with Bad Boy and took it public.
Bad Boy.
But they said that the South has something to say. People was laughing when they won that award. And they really came out after that and they really had something to say. So, they kind of planted the seed. And then by the time, like I said, the East Coast, West Coast thing happened, Biggie and Pac got killed and Death Row went under. Bad Boy went to Pop. And then the South, just had opened up and they took advantage of the void, I'll say. And the reason why I say it's the void is because you only had a couple of artists from the East Coast, like I said, DMX, Jay-Z. Then you had Dre, Snoop, like I said, went down south already. And just the East Coast was taking over. They also had Mac 10 that came down to No Limit, not No Limit, but Cash Money.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the South was actually doing a whole lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? They were still in the East Coast and I'll say West Coast artists. That's for sure. Snoop, Mac 10.
Hey, the South had their impact before. I always say that the whole sort of like Luke with the dancers and stuff like that, he revolutionized my generation's concept of an ideal woman. Like the whole thickness and all this other stuff, the curvy and all that other stuff. I mean, he was the father of that. You know what I'm saying? You may have felt like how you felt about whatever, but them Luke dancers, that was basically a concept and a thing that really just sort of like rewrote the script. You know what I'm saying? So again, that was that impact, that Miami bass, that Southern stuff. So there were things in the beginning, but we talk about with Outkast. Outkast has probably had arguably the greatest rap group run as far as success, as far as sales, as far as relevance, as far as quality music. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, and it really started with that beef. When you go to that Source Awards, that was the East Coast West doing their thing, and then the South got sucked in that because they were clowning them or booing them, and he just was telling you, the South got something to say, and that was a rallying cry from the South. And guess what? When the South took over, they never let it go.
They never let it go. They still relevant to this day. In fact, every new rapper that I hear about that gets killed, most times they from the South.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But let's give some props out to people like Ghetto Boys, UGK.
When you say Ghetto Boys, you gotta respect the Ghetto Boys, but you also gotta respect Scarface as an individual artist, because I understand The Fix is a little bit out of our window. One of the greatest albums of all time, 5 Micer from the Source Awards. So I'm just telling you, the Ghetto Boys is a dope group in itself. Scarface, phenomenal individual talent on his own.
Spin that back. Hey, Willie D too. Shout out to Willie D.
great podcast, great after rap career. You know what I'm saying? Just, he delivered some great things. He delivered Vlad apologizing to Farrakhan. So, that's an award right there.
Yes, sir. But then you had MC Shan. You had some other peoples from down south too. But these are the ones that stick out in the early days for me, though. Anyway, though. Yep.
Yeah, because Too Short had moved out there. It was also like a safety type situation. Like, there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. That's why a lot of cats, like I remember Cool G, he got into some stuff on the East Coast and went, I think, down there. So there was something to be said about that as well.
Yeah. Or even Too Short went down south too to Atlanta.
Yeah, that was the first person I was saying it. Yeah, exactly.
Too Short. Eric Sermon went down south. Yeah, a whole lot of people went down south. Even Puffy was down there doing some stuff.
Yeah, he's probably doing some stuff, but yeah,
he was doing a whole lot. Spin that back one time. And you gotta tell him no. So let's look at the timeline. So hip hop started on the East Coast, migrated to the West Coast, and the West Coast kind of took over for a while. East Coast, West Coast gets into it, have this big old beef. I'm just synopsising it up for y'all. And then the South came in. And I think the South had the longest run of any region.
Dominance. I mean, they've redefined the rap flow, the rap bounce, the rap they're basically the things that they laid out. They're the pillars of basically everything has even continuing to this day. So, like I said, the South never let it go. Shout out to the South.
Shout out to the South. And if y'all watching this, hit that like button for us one time. We appreciate it. So that's really where we at with that right now. So like I said, the South is right in the thick of things right now. Lil Wayne is still kind of relevant. Birdman is falling asleep on stage. But it is. I don't think the East Coast and West Coast is ever going to take it over again.
Put some respect on his name.
All three of us.
That was a classic moment, But yeah, that whole movement. Again, we're going a little bit outside of our window, but that was such an impactful movement because when you talk about Cash Money that led to Young Money, you're talking about people like Drake, you're talking about people like Nicki Minaj. You know what I'm saying? Just like these are the next generations of legends. You know what I'm saying? So the South really did their thing.
Yes, sir. Even Drake had to go down south.
Yeah, but he had to go back north after what happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, even he admitted that he lost.
Break north. Oh, he did finally. The lawsuit admitted it.
So let's talk about some recent stuff. So what's going on with hip hop? Because we got Bobby Shmurda, a dude that was like a 1 or 2 hit wonder. I don't even know either one of his songs. This dude was going on tour, and he sold like 10 tickets per city. And he had to cancel the tour.
See, to me, there's multiple tacks on this. You can talk about promotion, but then you can also talk about, what's your audience, what's your draw. You know what I'm saying? We've had much bigger legends in the game have to cancel tours because they couldn't put together the type of a draw. Busta Rhymes put together some stuff and got a big draw, big tour. Then, as I understand, there was some other thing that he tried to do that didn't quite pull out. And I'm telling you, Busta Rhymes is an absolute legend, big face in the game, great discography, great catalog. If you're not trying to basically run out to see Busta, it's tough. I mean, even when Michael Jackson was doing what he was doing, after his big domestic run, really he kind of had to rely on the international run. And that's what a lot of the rappers are doing. A lot of the guys because basically that stuff is like just making it their way to them. It's almost like new to them, but or they just have a much greater appreciation. So it's a natural thing. Don't feel bad about it. But I'm just saying that, Bobby Shmurda should have probably been part of an ensemble tour as opposed to the lead guy in the tour. I mean, I don't know what his music, but in his defense, When he was popping and clicking, he was the hottest thing in the game. It was very short, but then he got pinched. Because really the thing that made him a great celebrity was the thing that basically led him to being prosecuted. You really can't be a gangster and putting your business out there and then not expect that, hey, this is illegal stuff. You can't be sitting there broadcasting that you watching bootleg cable and not thinking that the cable is going to cut your cable off. I mean, that's just how it works. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out to the dude getting out. Shout out to his contribution or what he did, his run. You know what I'm saying? If you can figure it out a little better, hey, man, nothing wrong with doing those Zoom concerts or whatever you want to do. I mean, there's something that you can figure out. There's a lane for us older cats. You know what I'm saying? So, do your thing, brother.
Okay, so there's a big old lesson in all this. Don't get too cocky, East Coast, West Coast, because the South might come in and take your place and just replace it for forever. That's how it seems. So to you youngsters, if you try to get into this entertainment field, you can't mix it with the streets. It ain't going to work. You got to choose one or the other. You can't serve two masters. So if you want to be an entertainer, you can't be running these streets and trying to, live by the street code. Either you're going to do that or you're going to be an entertainer. Straight up.
The streets don't care about you, man. The streets are ruthless. The streets will eat you up and spit you out, and that'll be that. I understand that when you're growing up, what's around you and what you see is all you see. So you think that's everything. I mean, it's family. I understand it. It's organization. It's strength in numbers. There's positive things about that culture. You know what I'm saying? But then there's negative things. And I say that, look, if you can somehow hold on to the positive things and get rid of the negative things, you have a great functional organization. I'd love to see it evolve to that. But, you got to understand that, you can't do something that brings a spotlight on you when you're doing stuff that you don't want the spotlight on. It's just it's a conflict. And, it was a shame that a brother like Pac, got caught up in that, and the streets ate him up. And because of his animosity with Biggie, I'm of the opinion that basically it was his people, his connects that basically end up getting to Biggie, basically out of loyalty and devotion to Pac. So I blame Pac for not only getting himself killed, but getting Biggie killed. And it's unfortunate because Pac, we really could have used him. He was a great musician, a great thinker when he was grounded, and a powerful influence. I mean, we just really could have used Pac. Losing Pac was a terrible tragedy for Black people, for Black youth. He was. I said this many times that he was the. I forgot what the dude's name is. I was the dean, whatever, of our generation. The dude, the rebel out of cause guy. You know what I'm saying? That was a tragedy. James Dean. Tupac was the James Dean of our generation. He was just scratching the surface, what he was doing with music, what he was doing with movies. I mean, he was just such a great personality and a great draw. He just that Biggie thing. And it's like, man, if he just could have got away from that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe these things could have played out completely different. But, the past is the past. Let's learn from it.
Yes, sir. So rest in peace, Big. Rest in peace, Pac. Rest in peace, East Coast, West Coast hip hop. And also rest in peace to all those rappers that's getting killed out here. It's a dangerous game out here, y'all. Be careful. And anyway, with that being said, it's getting hot out here. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to tell y'all what, this is a short show. We're going to catch y'all next time on the Spin That Back show right after the Focus Up show next weekend. 9 a.m. for the Focus Up show, 10:30 for the Spin That Back show. Check this out. We will be back with some more hip hop, 79 to 99. All right. So we will say peace and we'll see y'all